call that. Lots of show coming your way today. We are from a satellite studio, obviously. We are out in Boca Raton, Florida, in the censored TV private secret studios. We're going to have Elijah Schaffer in here, journalist from the Gateway Pundit, host of Slightly Offensive on Censored TV, presenter on Vigilant News Network. You can follow him on X at Elijah Schaffer, Schaffer, and also slightlyoffensive.com. We're going to be joined also by Peter Gillooly from the Wellness Company. He's the CEO there. And then Janine Turner. Janine Turner, you know her from, amongst other things, Northern Exposure, if you remember that TV show from back in the 90s. She is an author, speaker, constitutional advocate, and she has had some issues with cancellation. The book is The Pivot Principle, Finding Joy in Despair. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of show. You can follow her on X. Janine Turner, we'll be right with you after this. Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. And as I said, we'll have Peter Gillooly in here in a few minutes, CEO of the Wellness Company, to talk about what's new with the Wellness Company. And we're going to have Janine Turner, actress, author, speaker. Remember her from Northern Exposure. Follow her on X at Janine Turner. And again, also constitutingamerica.org. You can also get her book, The Pivot Principle, Finding Joy in Despair. But first, Elijah Schaffer, journalist, Gateway Pundit, Slightly Offensive on Censored TV, presenter on Vigilant News Network, VNN. Elijah's available on X at Elijah Schaffer. Elijah, thank you for letting us commandeer your studio and for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me. You're a legend, and it's I listened to you in high school, not to age you at all, but...
Not to age you, but go ahead and do so.
Not to age you.
When I was 7, I used to listen to you on the radio.
I came out of the womb and I was like, is that Dr. Drew? No, but it's wonderful to be here with you and to have you in the room. And it's kind of cool because we'll just say high school was 5 years ago for those that are watching. So not too old.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that. So one of the things, we got a lot to talk about. I want you to tell your story in a few minutes. But before we do, one of the things we promised to address was all these pardons that the president is issuing, including pardons for crimes it's never before thought of. Like, but you haven't committed a crime, that's okay. If you have thought of, if you've committed one at one time and we didn't know it, we'll excuse you from that. I'm surprised he didn't project into the future as well, any potential crimes coming down the pike. But there is, I guess, this discussion of potentially pardoning Dr. Fauci again for. My understanding is, up until this present moment, presidential pardons were for specific crimes crimes that had been adjudicated, and you were pardoned for those crimes. Are you aware of other historical antecedents where people have just been excused of anything they might have done?
Well, I mean, kind of, because I mean, we did bomb Iraq for their nukes that they told us that they had, right?
Okay.
And so they got punishment before they were even convicted of a crime. It's not the same thing,
Fair enough.
but I think we've been for the last several decades sort of preemptively doing whatever we want to do, and then letting the law and the courts catch up with us. It's a progressive sort of lawfare. I kind of am getting used to it. It's uncomfortable because it's illegal and it's not conventional, but we don't really follow that pesky document called the Constitution anymore, and like, you know, Bill of Rights and stuff. It's sort of just on the sidelines.
They're burdensome.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I know you're being facetious about it, but but it makes me a little nauseated because we're not far from that.
No, we're not far from. I mean, even, you know, you see what's going on in New York with Daniel Penny, you know, and the case of self-defense, you know, specifically like how when there's interracial, you know, violence or interactions, then sometimes in these big cities, you don't see the same judgment if it's between black and black or white and white, right? There's sort of a lot of motivation, it seems like, to further divide the country. And one might ask, if you were going to go and pardon people, that's one thing to do it like so flagrantly, but why would you go on such a PR tour for a year telling everybody from multiple mouths, we are not going to pardon Hunter?
Yeah.
And then why leak it ahead of time? Well, we might be pardoning some people that didn't even commit crimes. Are you going to be pardoning people not born yet?
Right. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, they don't have any rights. We've sort of established that, right?
Oh, yeah,
People not
correct.
born, right.
Correct.
So
fetuses don't have rights, but also the American people, I feel like a fetus myself because it feels like I don't have any rights either.
I'm thinking about Whoopi Goldberg twisting President Biden's insistence that he would not pardon his son as not being a lie, and that she got into it with Charlemagne the God. What did you think of that interaction? Did you see that?
Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg. Oh, she's such a character.
She's going to be an Annie. She's going to be an Annie. We saw that in New York. She's back on the stage.
I mean, good for her. She's been very successful in her career. I don't want to disparage her in that way, but you know, as a political commentator, I feel like she's probably, you know, more inconsistent than the modern food pyramid. You know what I mean? It's like, it seems like it's inverse and backwards, where everything she says is hypocritical. And I know she's been getting mad the last week, particularly because you have to read all these legal notices. And it's like, why are you mad that you guys are spewing out incorrect information, have to correct it? You know something's off there.
Why doesn't she not read it and see what happens? That'd be interesting, right?
Well, she'd scream racism, right? Isn't that what she said with the cupcake debacle?
Yeah, she couldn't get all those cakes made.
Because people didn't like her. She was a Democrat, right?
Right. It
Turns out it was
not
boiler.
racism. It was her political issues, her
Right,
political
right.
positions. Yeah, I don't understand. I can't imagine how people can twist this consistent Pierre, the press secretary.
Jean-Pierre.
Jean-Pierre. And she said repeatedly, we've told you there's no way it's going to be a pardon. He's been clear there's no way it's going to be a pardon. And then all of a sudden there's a pardon. Okay. By the way, that's the surest way to kill a drug addict. They keep going. People keep taking this position that if we're, you know, family's family, and if you're going to, you know, he's his son, he's got to protect family. What are you going to do? That's what anybody would do. No, it's not what anybody would do. And in fact, if they were in my care, I would not permit, or I would do my damnedest to encourage that father not to rescue the son from the consequences of his disease. Now, in this case, I understand this is a little bit more involved because the son was doing the father's bidding. The more I listen to Mike Benz, the more I get really bent out of shape. Did you see him on Rogan recently?
Oh, yeah, that was incredible.
Tell me your thoughts.
You know, I think when he was going out there and directly saying, look, this corruption is like systemic, it's from the top down, I really, really sense, I mean, Mike Benz is an interesting character because he kind of came up on the scene rather quickly, right?
Well, I interviewed him a couple times.
Okay.
He said he was in the Obama administration and his job was to untangle the blob. Like help the president understand the blob. And that's how he got into this. And now with social media and the way things went, he saw it happening, so he felt like he needed to share what he knew.
Right, and I think what he showed, and that I continually say, is that systemic racism. I mean, it may exist in certain institutions. Systemic problems in general may be a big issue. But when you look at what's happening, it's like actually we have corruption from the top down. It's organized corruption, and it's organized racketeering and protectionism.
Right.
So it's not just the fact that people are taking money, giving money, and doing political hit jobs or doing political investigation raids like we saw in Mar-a-Lago. It's that they're guaranteed a buyout. They're guaranteed safety and protections in the courts. And so basically you have this sort of like proletariat sort of like almost like the old Roman guard that, they used to almost put up forbidding the place of being the Caesar because they were the protection and they could kill you, and they constantly were killing the Caesars. So it became sort of a joke position, be the emperor or whatever, because the guard knew that ultimately, if you don't want to follow us, then we'll take you out. And that's sort of what the CIA and FBI have become today. And he sort of brings light to that, where they're working on their own directives. And it's like, look, we don't care who you elect. We don't care if you're the president. We'll come into your home. We'll do whatever we want to do. Point a gun at your wife.
Well, some of you people may not have seen the little tape that rolled into this interview today, but it was an interview with Paul Alexander where he said he was talking to bureaucrats from the State Department who were very clear with him. The president just kind of rolls through here for 4 years. He doesn't run the country. We do. We determine what happens here. It was when this was probably a year and a half ago. He told me that. I was stunned that they were so hubristic about this. I thought they kind of did it on the DL and was sort of maybe because of the size of the bureaucracy, they kind of hid out within it or something. But this is a stated position, a cultural position within the bureaucracy as it pertains to the Roman Guard, Roman Legion?
Yeah, I think it was the Roman Guard.
Is that your construct, or did Ben's bring that up?
Well, he was sort of talking about that, but I had watched a historical documentary about it, and I was going, wow, that's pretty. There's a lot of similarities and symmetry between the two. Like this is not a new problem, right? With people with the power.
It's interesting that the founding fathers were thinking about Rome when they set up our system.
Yeah, it is. You know what? It is honestly. It feels like we're a little bit in that same spectrum here too, because cancel culture is a little bit like the Colosseum. It's like
not just the Colosseum. They I don't know if you've read. If you really read about the history. There was just violence upon violence on violence. They'd have these waves of sort of overthrows where they'd killed everybody and their family, sort of the way the Nazis did their thing.
Right. It was going to say, what also was an interesting factor too is the Royal Guard, and I don't want to mess up the exact name. It has a particular name. They were saying how they essentially worked on bribes, and they were fat and untrained. And in modern movies, they like to make them seem like an elite fighting guard, but they were rather unimpressive individuals. But yet, because of their ability and the widespread corruption, they were still deadly, not because they were stronger or swifter, but simply because there was no roadblock, no judicial process that could get in the way.
Wow.
And I sat there and I listened to Mike Benz, and I'm like, that's literally what we have. We have a lack of checks and balances with this elite three-letter agency, ruling class. And they really can get away with what they want while we are held to the highest degrees of accountability. Yeah. Like on January 6th, for minor misdemeanors, you find yourself in jail without trial for a year because you voted for the wrong guy.
Do you think we could roll this back?
That's a good question, because I want to be careful whenever I'm talking about the potential for violence, in the fact that this kind of stuff would probably result in people getting killed, because I don't think these people would give up power. I don't think these people would give up their bureaucratic positioning, because we're not talking about a $100,000 raise. We're talking about people who have the power to control the largest empire in the world's history without even having to go through elections. I mean, this is power that we've never heard of or that's ever been seen.
But it's not by a given individual. It's by groups of individuals. That individually they're not that powerful, or am I missing something?
Well, I think that they are. Like, I mean, when you go down to it, I mean, when you see right now these senators that are in these, red zones, we kind of have a lot of these people we call rhinos, people that might not know, they're Republican in name only. They're in these deep red districts, just like we get Nancy Pelosi or these career politicians in blue districts. They kind of just allow themselves to stay in office forever. And well, how does that happen? Well, obviously, because the primaries are what are mainly rigged. People choose two candidates, a Republican and a Democrat, that basically agree on the same critical issues. And in the end, in a red district, the red guy will win. In a blue district, the blue guy will win. You always have a fail-safe. But what are they looking for? They're looking for people that are going to be loyal to this sort of bureaucratic state and elite class class that are going to allow them to do what they want overseas when it comes to war, when it comes to surveillance. And they continually, even as Trump is elected, they're trying to put roadblocks in the way of his cabinet picks, meaning they don't really care what the president wants. They don't really care what we want. They care about what they want.
No, I get that. And it is one of the most disgusting realizations I've had really post-COVID. So COVID laid bare so much for me, and I was disgusted by a lot of things. But that is the one thing that the free speech, as you said, the Bill of Rights being sort of an inconvenience, the free speech infringements, and then this issue of a bureaucracy running our country that's unelected and believing that they actually run the government is disgusting. So speaking of COVID, we have Dr. Hotez now. I think I want to talk. Oh,
gosh.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about this also. What is these Republicans that are, maybe Janine could talk about that a little bit. But Dr. Ho says, now, I wonder, Caleb, maybe I should have warned you about this. Can we play that video that he laid out on, I guess he saw it? Okay, we won't do it. So the producer says, all right. So what it essentially said was that as soon as the president takes office, there's going to be a rash of infectious diseases, okay? And he goes through, first of all, H5N1, the bird flu, and how that's now everywhere. No human-to-human transmission, but it's everywhere. And then he talked about dengue, which is a major headline. We had dengue. We had actually indigenous mosquito-transmitted dengue in Southern California. That's a major issue in infectious disease. Press didn't publish it once, didn't cover it at all, but he mentioned that. He mentioned childhood illnesses. He mentioned how bat transmission of coronaviruses are a thing. None yet available. Nobody's documented anything. But there was a SARS-1 and a SARS-2. And well, first of all, how did you feel about what he was saying?
Well, first of all, I want to say, I think we actually do have a problem with humans kind of becoming like birds. You've seen a lot of people today are very round and then wear those leggings with the little stick legs like a pigeon body, you know? So I think we're sort of
that's what's happening. We're becoming birds, so it will infect us. So the virus will not morph, we'll morph.
We are morphing. I see. You've heard of transgenderism, and this is a transspeciesism.
I got it.
Right?
I got it.
We can become what we want. And so
there it is. There's the headline there.
Wow.
Big public health threats going to come crashing down on January 21st. So let me give you my opinion, because my opinion is going to freak people out.
Okay.
I agree with everything he said. And it's nobody's fucking business. No one should be worried about that except doctors. It's always been like that. This is nothing new. Dengue fever, Zika, this has been around for decades. Doctors worry about these things. The public shouldn't even be aware. They needn't be thinking about it. He's a pediatrician. He doesn't deal with adult medicine. These are adult medical problems that I've been thinking about my entire fucking career. And it's just our concern. It's called being a biological agent in an ecosystem in which there are infectious diseases. It's the practice of medicine. I'm concerned about it. Were he not a pediatrician, should be worried about it, but he's a pediatrician. He should worry about pediatric illnesses. He's never treated any of those illnesses he mentioned, ever. I've seen a lot of them. I've seen all the equine viruses. I've seen all the stuff transmitted. It's what we deal with. I deal with rickettsial diseases in Southern California. It's being a physician. We need to worry about it. We need to discuss it amongst ourselves. And at which point it becomes something that the public, on a need-to-know basis, needs to be notified. Then we will tell them what to worry about, when, and what to do with it. But the fact that they are... It's the same thing as the premeditated pardoning. I'm pardoning you for things that you may never have done or are never going to happen. It's the same idea. We're going to make you worry about things about that. We're literally making you worry about things that are related to being a biological agent. We are biological agents, and as such, shit happens to us. That's what he's telling us. And everything he said was accurate. Everything.
Well, I'm just saying, it is kind of funny. You mentioned that, he's a pediatrician, but I don't know if you've seen the world today. Most of these people are really not much of adults anyway, right? So maybe he's actually a doctor for all the children walking around.
So you're going for We're all children or birds. Children or birds. I mean, therefore, it's really important.
I'm trying to get where their brains are at, because I think they think that we're like animals. They treat us like animals, and they also talk to us like we're children, where they don't actually care. And I think the most fundamental thing here is that what you're pointing out, and I've brought this up to many people who have not been what's called red-pilled or awakened to the control methods that are going on, is this. When you hear a doctor talk about that, he is not talking about the seriousness of a threat. He's talking about the seriousness of the media's attention to something, right? So it's hey guys, here's what we're going to be covering for the next year. Why can they say that when he has his first day in office, as Hotez said, we're going to have these problems? Or do they not exist now? Yes, they exist now. What he meant is they don't exist inside your brain because it's not on the news all the time.
Right.
So we are going to push this on social media. We'll change terms of service so that people can't speak out against, you as a doctor. You're not credentialed anymore because you're credentialed under a medical system in America, but this is a technological system, which is why Trump wants the digital Bill of Rights, which is the most transformative thing I've seen, which is to protect your rights and our rights, where if you can say it in the real world, if you're credentialed to speak on these issues, you should not be prohibited from speaking that same way online. And I think with the medical stuff, I'll just say that, the biggest thing Trump can do to counteract this is to give people like you the weaperized power to use your free speech online.
I don't want to be weaponized. I just want to be free.
But you are a weapon. That's why they're scared of you.
Well,
that's why they silence you.
But here's what people get screwed up is, and by the way, Susan, I need to know how people are reacting to what I just said, but because people get very weird when I get adamant. What was I saying the other day?
We need more of that.
Freaked out, but
Rumble loved it.
Okay, good.
If they get offended, it's fine.
But the fact that I can agree with him, what he said was correct, and take issue with it at the same time. This is where people can't understand. It's like, yes, he's right. And he and I, well, not him because he's a pediatrician, but me and my colleagues in adult medicine should be talking a lot about this and thinking about it and worrying about it, conversing about it. And the press should not be involved in any way whatsoever. Now, we have outlets like this where maybe I'll choose to talk about it, maybe I won't. That's a Bill of Rights issue. And, if you want me to talk about it, I will on a kind of need-to-know basis. I'm not going to panic you. I'm not going to freak you out. I'm going to say, here's what doctors are thinking about and worrying about. Dr. Hotez mentioned the ones I worry about, and I've worried about things like that for 40 years. Have you been worried about it for 40 years? I have. I've been dealing with it for 40 years. Should you have been worried about it all that time? Would your life have been better? Would you have been safer? Would you have not had illnesses that you ended up getting because you worried about, and you altered the course of your life because you're a biological agent? No, that's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, and I think the manipulation is, you see this on a lot of issues. Like I remember back in Trump's first administration, obviously there was the Trump derangement syndrome where people, thought, he could not do anything right. He could only do wrong. Right. And I thought the interesting part about that was like when I would tell people, some of these pictures in the Kids with Cages thing, you remember that? I would say those main pictures were actually from Obama's presidency. And they would say, you're a liar. And then I would show them AP News, show them the accreditation, and they would go, no, that's not true. Then they would go, well, he's deporting everyone. He's terrible. And I go, listen, I'm a right-wing guy. I would like him to deport more people. Unfortunately, Obama was deporting more. And they're like, do you mean the second coming of Jesus Christ? He was deporting more people? And I'm like, yeah. So then you show them statistics. And what's crazy, though? They still wouldn't change their mind. That's the real sickness of media. It's so
not
ingrained.
Just media. Well, it's the sickness of brainwashing, and that media has. I didn't realize that. I thought propaganda was something that happened in the 1930s. I didn't realize that humans are always prone to being brainwashed by propaganda, or that it could happen. It really was very surprising to me.
What is that, doctor? I know you're going on a line, but like from a psychological point of view, when we're in a place where you're presenting facts and people don't believe them, I know it's called propaganda, but what's that going on?
It's funny. There was a podcast called You Are Not So Smart that I used to listen to before COVID, because I was I was frustrated with people that I couldn't persuade through rational discourse. And in particular, I was frustrated with flat earthers. And I thought, God, how could I get a flat? I mean, they're literally, I want to go to them and say, the basic laws of mathematics and trigonometry and geometry would have to be null and void if I were to take your point of view. And it turns out that the one thing I learned from studying this a little bit is that it's a worldview, and it's a community, and it's the connections in that community, in that shared worldview, that is what's important, not the facts. You can actually persuade someone. Let's say the measles vaccine is good. Even an anti-vaxxer could be persuaded the measles vaccine is good. But there's something called the backfire effect, where they'll double down on everything else. So even though you may be able to persuade them in a narrow area where you really get them to dig in, they'll double down on other areas that are similar. And the only way you can go about it is to go, have you thought that maybe you're thinking about the world is off? And how often can you get in that conversation with somebody and really get anywhere, right? It's so funny myself, because I'm in that 10% that doesn't seem to be affected by typical brainwashing. The 30% go all in, 20-30% go all in, 10% are throw the bullshit flag right away, and 70% just kind of want to be left alone. That's the mass formation numbers. I'm at the point right now, you saw Joe Rogan's stand-up where he said, I don't know, maybe the earth is flat, maybe Michelle Obama has I don't know. He said, I'm up for anything. And I kind of feel like that now. I'm open to everything, because things that I thought could never be turned out to be. And that was exposed to me during COVID.
Yeah, I think also, there's a lot of statistics about this and large medical terms. It's more simply understood by me that a majority of the population is retarded. That's
it's a medical term.
That is genuinely.
There are several medical terms. There's retarded. Wait a second. Yeah. There's idiot, imbecilic, and moron. Those are all medical terms.
Dumbass as well. Growing up, which is unfortunately the majority of people I meet on the street. But no, it is interesting.
Just because they don't agree with you, Elijah, really?
Yeah. Don't tell my wife if she's watching. But she's, obviously in the midst of all this, all I was going to say was, what I noticed is that even in my own mind, there are things that, obviously I don't understand, are hard to let go because you form a worldview and it's hard to be detached from that. But it's crazy. Like, I have family members who cut me off for not getting vaccinated against COVID, told me I was killing my family, treated me like a second-rate human being. My family's from Australia as well, and I had, a family member who almost got arrested for eating lunch outside. They had drones going over their backyards. And then when I asked them about this, hey guys, you treated us like we were second-class citizens for several years, particularly in Australia, about 3. Would you apologize? And I get this. It wasn't that big of a deal. You're overreacting. You're exaggerating. So there's still like a detachment in people's minds where they can't accept the severity of the choices they're making, like the illegal immigration issue, etc. So, I mean, it is frustrating, I'm sure, a lot of people watching this, to get through to people. But the best advice I have is try to clear up as much as you can in your own head, because you can't control anyone else's mind except for your own.
And I want a little bit of Elijah's pedigree. He filmed Kyle Rittenhouser during the shootings. That was your footage. He was inside the Capitol on January 6th. You've been undercover in the Antifa groups. You've been around.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I didn't catch any STDs while I was with Antifa. So that's first time in the world, I think.
And then finally,
they're crazy.
The term woke right.
Yeah, all right.
Is that a real thing?
I think people are trying to make it a real thing.
It felt kind of right to me. It felt like maybe there is. I'm a little guilty of some of this stuff. So maybe you ought to thump on me a little bit.
Well, so obviously there's a few people that are like sort of this intellectual group, or they tout themselves as intellectuals, and I want to be kind to their pedigree. I like them, and I think they're very, very good gentlemen.
I think I'm in this group. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think they're good. They're good people. What I think, though, is that they actually disagree with a portion of the right wing on 3 issues, which is the influence and place of Israel and Zionism, or as some might call it, the Jews or whatever. They also disagree on sort of this prototypical idea that the West belongs or should be predominantly white, right? That's one of the controversial issues. And the third is the place of religion and Christianity in policy decisions in the government.
Interesting.
And the group that has coined this are typically the more center to center left, center right part. I'd say just centrists. They tend to be atheists that are calling people woke right or agnostic. And they tend to be very anti-communist in a lot of their ways, but it's almost like an adherent religion. And not to bore people, what I have found is that a lot of these factions have been warring for many, many years. And a lot of these more liberal side on the right don't want to get caught up calling people anti-Semites or Nazis, because obviously the woke left, as we'd call them, is calling everybody that, right? It's sort of lost its term. I mean, Jews are getting called anti-Semites, and Holocaust survivors are getting called Nazis. So it's sort of lost its flair. So in order to sort of like categorize this portion of a more dogmatic right wing, they're calling them the woke right. I think it's a paradox. I don't think they can be woke. I don't think that's possible. What I think that the confusion is here, to summarize it, is that because that portion of the right wing is offering some pretty severe and extreme solutions to some of the problems in the West, because the framework and the leveling of reasoning is similar to that on the far left, they're categorizing them as the same people. However, I think they're being intellectually dishonest. For instance, like what this one individual did, James Lindsay, is at first I thought he did something really funny. I thought he republished Karl Marx's manifesto in a, quote, woke right publication. Then I found out that he changed about 90% of the document and just changed the wording. And I go, that's not really the same thing, because if I were to show an Israeli, pro-Hamas propaganda, but then change Hamas to Israel, and then they agreed with it, that doesn't make them hypocrites. They're very clear on what they want. And if the solution for Hamas is for Hamas to win and be totally victorious, and the solution for Israel is to be totally victorious, I don't think Israel's hypocritical for taking that propaganda and making Israel the victors and approving of it. And so I think because they're trying to say that the framing of the arguments are similar, but the methods and the solution are different, that they're the same thing. And I don't find it to be as convincing as I feel like they're sort of marketing it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Slightlyoffensive.com. It's only slightly offensive. Follow Elijah Schaffer on X at Elijah Schaffer, ELIJAHSCHAFFER. In a few minutes, we're going to get Janine Turner in here. She is, of course, the actress from Northern Exposure, if you remember her there. She is also author, speaker, constitutional advocate. Her book is The Pivot Principle, Finding Joy in Despair. It's available now. You can follow Janine on X, Janine Turner, and constitutingamerica.org is where you can find more information. She is now a rancher in Texas. There's a lot going on with Janine. She's going to join us, but we're going to be first joined by Peter Gillooly, the CEO of the Wellness Company, who's going to give us a little update on where things are at with
the man from the
Wellness Company, the man, the Wellness Company. And we'll take a little break. Be right back with everybody after this. The Wellness Company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine, available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/TWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there.
That's brilliant. And thank you, Drew. Where's Dr. Drew? Where is he? Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
And we are back. Peter Gillooly joins us from the Wellness Company. Peter, where shall we follow you, sir?
Well, you can join my dozens of followers on Twitter.
Good.
Peter Gillooly.
Follow him to see if we can build that out a little bit. Please, everybody, get on
Move
that.
to your left.
No, to my right.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
So go ahead. And Peter,
And back
give us
a
an
little
update on what's going on with the wellness and One Wellness, all these different projects. I have the medical emergency kit right here, buddy. You're out of your mind if you don't have these things on hand. I'm going to give a little pitch, which is that, I feel very strongly things need to be put back in the patient's sphere of influence, the patient's hands, and wellness has been doing exactly that. The emergency kits, Susan, how often do we reach into our kits?
I did this week, as a matter of fact.
Very, very frequently. And
I got my Keflex out of there and didn't have to call the doctor.
Well, thankfully she has a doctor in hand, but you might need to call telehealth. We are backed
my
up by telehealth.
doctor told me to get it. I said, let me use the one.
Exactly.
I want to use it before it goes out.
Exactly. And you've used the cream. We've had the
Bactroban and I'll tell you a couple of things that I had later, but the One Wellness is what's interesting.
Yes. Tell us about One Wellness.
Yes, we've had a insane year at the wellness company. I mean, we're only 2 years old. It's kind of hard to even believe, Drew, that it's only been going on to our third year now. But here we are, and I think one of the things that we've seen most prominently is people that just keep coming back again and again for more of our services. And they wanted to be able to save, and we really value our best customers. And to your point, how do we combine the loyalty, Drew, with that kind of concept of putting it back in the patient's hands?
Yes.
So we want to give an alternative to insurance, right? And we've seen time and time again that the insurance companies, they really are calling the shots in the hospitals, and they're really telling the doctors what to do.
Well, I'm gonna say something, and this is met with peace and love, but there was a horrible thing that happened in Manhattan, in New York City this week, and immediately people started pointing at the frustrations of the industry that he was a part of, and I don't want to guess what was motivating the assassins or any of these things, but the fact that immediately everybody's had such horrible experiences with insurance that those are the kinds of thoughts this entire country had simultaneously, we might want to reconsider how we do this. You know what I'm saying? And that's what wellness is trying to do.
And I was blown away, Drew, by those comments. And I really think that it strikes a deeper nerve in America that we're seeing right now, because people are just sick and tired of being bullied and treated like they're second-class citizens. They're treating like they're just a piggy bank.
Well, and especially when their life is on the line, their health is on the line, their well-being is on the line. It's like, well, sorry, the anesthesia was more than 3 hours. Maybe you're going to have to pay for the rest of it, or just wake up while your belly's open. Okay, that's the way it goes. What are you going to do?
Well, and Drew, think about the situations when you're most likely to talk to a doctor. It's when you're in distress. It's when you're not mentally able to make the best decisions. And a doctor should be there to advise you, but still, you're oftentimes choosing between your health and your bank account. And that's a really hard choice for people to make a lot of times. And if we can get ahead of that at the wellness company, if we can give people the tools to stay well, and when they are getting sick or feeling that scratch in their throat, rather than waiting until they might have to venture into a hospital and being laid up in bed for days, they have the meds already on hand. They don't have to make that choice anymore. They can save money and be healthy.
Yeah, you can't imagine the situations I was in. On the mental health side, it's just egregious. People leaving, and me saying, I can't. It's going to cost you. Won't be able to afford this if I don't discharge you, and I don't think you should go anywhere. I think you should stay here, or maybe we can arrange some aftercare. This that. Insurance company won't cover that, and people hurt themselves, or there's something terrible happens, and the insurance company literally will say, well, we don't practice medicine. There's Dr. Pinsky's signature right there on the discharge order. We had nothing to do with it. That's sorry. You had a lot to do with it, and maybe everything to do with it. And we need a new incarnation. And I don't know. One Wellness to me seems like the beginning of something. Maybe goes that direction.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, you can save money on everything that we offer. At the higher tiers, you can get free scripts. We have over 800 free scripts in our formulary. So if you're on almost any chronic medication, you can get it for free as part of that plan. You can get free virtual care visits. You can get free supplements every month. So you're actually moving away
Are people happy with the telehealth visits and the service?
They're very happy. And it's really important to us, Drew, that we have our doctors available. If you want to be part of the TWC Telehealth Network, it is required that you are doing both in-person and asynchronous consults. We don't give doctors the option because we want them to have that patient connection. That's so important.
Yeah. And then since we are an interview show, I'm going to ask you, how's this experience been, being the CEO of something like this? It's such an interesting for me, it's been a wonderful and interesting experience. I just imagine what it's like for you.
It's been fascinating. I mean, life is certainly not linear. I'll tell you that. If you told me a couple of years ago that this is where I'd be sitting, I probably would have laughed in your face.
You were crushing diamonds for military ID stuff.
And that's a story for another time, but that is absolutely true. Crushing diamonds for the military is a good way to put what I was doing, correct? But I mean, look, we had no idea what we were tapping into when we formed the wellness company. Yeah. And it started with spike support. I mean, we really started looking first at just COVID vaccine detox. And that still is one of our top selling products today. I know, Drew, you went on a branch on it early on and started talking about spike support. We launched a new product, an improved version that's now outselling the original. And I mean, 80-something% of Americans took a vaccine.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them, health is apolitical. They want to just be healthy no matter what it takes. And we want to be there for them.
Look at Dr. McCullough's protocols. They're very good. And then Peter's got these products that help support them or actually can easily represent those protocols. He's a brilliant physician. He's been studying these things carefully. He's changed how I think about viruses, interestingly. And it's evolving, and we're getting better, I think.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that we're going to see a real groundswell here under RFK, hopefully in a couple of weeks, of people starting to feel comfortable talking about these topics that previously were taboo, like vaccines. Right? It's time we question everything, and I think people are ready.
Like I said, or maybe the Earth is flat. I don't know. I'm open to things I was not open to 3 years ago, 2 months ago. Even I just am very open-minded. But we do need to ask the right questions and look carefully and objectively at the data and the answers and study things properly. We also have Harvey Reish in the group, who's just wonderful at that. And he taught me, he made me refocus my scientific methodology, which is, hey, we can say one of two things with the scientific method. The null hypothesis is either informative or it is not informative. And that's it. And that's what we do in science. That's the scientific method. So I know for a lot of you that may sound obscure. It is not. It just shows how focused and refined and delicate the instrument is we use that we call science. And we sort of have become very, very casual with it. We need to get it more focused. I talked to Brett Weinstein about exactly that, and he completely agreed with me. All right, so Peter, thank you. I want to bring my next guest.
So wait, give the gift of health for the holidays. Go to drdrew.com/TWC. Join One
Wellness.
Make your family join.
Use code
One
Drew.
Wellness. Use code.
And
you need a code Drew.
Check out the kits.
We'll
We
save some
have
money.
kits.
Yeah, and also or just get a kit for some.
This is
I
the
don't
one
know.
that
Just go over there
Dr.
and check it
Victory
all out.
worked out, right?
She worked on the red
one.
kit. Yep.
Dr. Victory, Kelly Victory, who you guys all know from this show. She, of course, does a lot of disaster and ER.
They have the
and
big kit now too. It's so cool.
that huge one is wild. What's that one called?
The field emergency kit.
Field emergency kit. It's just, we love that
tank.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Held
sits
that
on
up
my
on screen
desk.
You
one
guys
time
have
and I
gift
freaked out.
certificates over there?
It's just beautiful.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
All right, so everybody out there on our feed, they have gift certificates. So if you want to get one for grandma, or you want to get one for your colleagues at work, you can't think of a great gift. I just thought of somebody I want to get it for, so I'm going to get a gift certificate.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to, like I've said, it's a pleasure to work with
have
you.
to do it. This is what
and Foster and the whole organization has been really, it's been a really interesting and delightful experience. And I feel like we're doing something good. And I hope we continue to sort of expand what that means. And that's the future, I hope. Janine Turner. I'm going to tell you about Janine. Those of you that are Gen Xers remember her from the Emmy-nominated CBS series Northern Exposure. She founded Constituting America, and she hosts 2 podcasts, USA and God on the Go Minute. Her book is The Pivot Principle, Finding Joy in Despair. It is available now. There's the book, and she works as a rancher in Texas. You can find more at constitutingamerica.org and follow her on X, Janine Turner, just like it sounds. Janine, welcome to the program.
Hi. Great to be with you, Dr.
Hey
Drew.
So tell us, you had a cancellation experience. Tell people about your history a little bit, if you don't mind.
Well, it's funny. I just put a poem that I wrote in my book, which is mixed with poetry and prose and well health type of scenarios, about being silenced and being confined to a box. And I've experienced that a lot in my life. I'm actually working on a novel right now called Silenced. And, I'm an actress. And I love my fellow humanitarians who I believe my fellow actors are humanitarians and they're good people. And I love so many of them. But if you have an opinion that's different than theirs, you are told to keep your mouth shut, which is what I was told. You can be here, but you need to not talk. So I've been experiencing that since I was about 18 years old. I moved to Hollywood at 17 and New York City at 15 to model. And so it's been a big part of my life.
I think I'm looking right now on your your X feed. I think, did I see that poem up on X today? It sounds very familiar. I'm looking around.
Yeah. Yeah, you may have. I did it in two parts because it's long and you have to do it in 90 seconds. But it's confined.
Okay, that's what it was.
Confined to a box, and I think that's really how I have felt so much of my life. No matter what scenario you want to, what decade of my life I'm in, silencing has been a big part of my life, and I really believe in the freedom of speech. And I'm a Texan, and I was raised by a West Point father graduate and a very opinionated, Southern woman. And so I speak my mind, and I'm not going to let anybody stop me from speaking my mind.
So does it shock you that the First Amendment was suddenly something that was sort of, something we can live without, something that's maybe is a little bit of an inconvenience? I mean, was that shocking to you?
Yes, it was shocking to me. And I love philosophy as well, Dr. Drew. Hegel talked about the dialectic, that you need to hear, my interpretation, different points of view in order to grow. And I'm a real advocate of reason. And you cannot reason if you don't hear both points of view. You really need to hear, this point of view and not be indoctrinated, which is happening in our schools. But let's listen to this point of view. And why don't I make up my own mind? And I think that that's been what's really been missing in America. And I'm very encouraged about this election and that Trump was elected because Alexander Hamilton, since I'm a constitutional scholar, so to speak, talked about the genius of the people. And I was really relieved with this election. And I feel that the genius of the people have spoken. And now let's see what can be accomplished.
That is a great frame to resurrect the genius, because people talk about the wisdom of crowds and things like that, but the fact that Hamilton framed it as the genius of the people, I think, is a very, very important thing for us to remind ourselves of. The other thing I'm thinking of when you mention GWF Hegel is that a little known statement he had that I just find really important, and when I read it, I was like, what? Now I get it. He said essentially he talked in a lot of code, and he said, the owl of Minerva spreads its wings only with the setting of dusk. The point being is that you can really only look back and understand history as it's closing. And I thought, that has never been more meaningful to me than in recent sort of years. So looking back on COVID and looking back on so many things that have happened in the last 10 years, it's like, I understand it completely differently now.
Well, and I like what Voltaire says, which is, I may disagree, I may disapprove of what you're saying, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. And I think we've lost that in America. We've been shut down. We haven't been able to express ourselves. And we have a speaking program at constitutingamerica.org, and one of them is how to have a civic conversation, because I've been shut down so much of my life, whether it's Hollywood or as a single mother or whatever it may be. And I think that we must be able to have civic conversations where we listen to each other. And I'm not always the best at that, I will admit, but I think it's a goal worth achieving.
And it's interesting, I find myself quoting de Tocqueville a lot, and I understand democracy in America is something that you are very familiar with as well. Again, that we are, here we are, two Americans in the, not so early in the 21st century anymore, talking about and quoting a guy from 1820, a French aristocrat that visited us in 1820. What are your thoughts on de Tocqueville?
Well, we have academic studies every year at our foundation, and one was about American exceptionalism, which I really think we need to go ahead and say that word, and why we are. And our study proves throughout history why we are exceptional. And the other is de Tocqueville. And de Tocqueville was so prescient, and he was able to talk about America from an objective point of view and juxtaposition America against the French, their monarchy, you know, how they didn't succeed really with the revolution and how we did. And I find de Tocqueville to be quite intriguing. We have a study about that at constitutionamerica.org right now. And he talks about everything. He even talked about the rise of America and Russia being great powers with which to deal in the future.
He predicted it. He predicted it. He actually predicted it. It's crazy, right? I don't know. How could he have seen that? That's so weird, right?
I know. Very, very true. Yeah. But he also talks about, you know, Voltaire and the freedom of speech, and he observes our country and really how industrious we were and are, and how we were based off this sort of moral compass that gave us our ability to be, you know, great within our community, within our townships, and I think we've lost townships, haven't we, Dr. Drew? I mean, we think that I give 600 kids, they think the president's the most important, but townships are really very important.
Well, and to that point, Janine, what de Tocqueville said was the local practice of democracy was the reason democracy in America was successful. So not only was participation of all citizens sort of brought in on the local level, it was a practice. It was a way of living that was in the classroom. It was in the civic centers, and it sort of permeates our life. And we've lost some of that practice. And we have to be very careful about that, because he really thought that was the reason it worked.
Yes, and when I speak to kids, I speak to students all over the country, and I ask them, you vote how often do you vote? And they say 4 years. And I say, for whom do you vote? And they say the president. And I'm like, well, really, the president's not supposed to be the most important person. It is your legislator in your district and in your township. Teaching kids to be civic citizens and why that matters. And also, Dr. Drew, I know you can relate to this, to be able to reason. And we can't reason if we don't hear 2 points of view.
Well, listen, we ascend to the truth through dialogue. That's how we get near the truth. Humans do not have the capacity for the truth with a capital T, but we can ascend to an approximation through dialectic, like you said. But everybody, look out your window. If you look out your window right now, whoever is picking up your trash, who's ever doing the fire department, the local police, whoever is sweeping the streets, that is not the federal government. This thing was not set up so the federal government was supposed to be involved in our lives. It is our local government that really impacts us. The fact that we worry about the federal government is an abomination. It's a bastardization of this thing. You mentioned Hamilton was a little bit towards big government, but at least Jefferson felt that they should not be in with us. They should be dealing with interstate commerce and defense, and that's about it.
Well, true. It should be limited and enumerated government. That's what our Constitution says, the national government, and that it's really federalism. And I have to tell you, I have a love affair with federalism, because federalism is about the states and about the local governments, and about what we, the people, what I teach the kids is, you know, it's the consent of the governed. And it's we, the people, not we, the government. So we've gotten to this mindset that it's government. But it's not we, the government. And I'm excited about Doge, aren't you? I think Doge could be very, very exciting.
Oh, my God, yes. I want to bring Elijah in for a second, because there's two issues that Janine's triggering me to think about, which is, one is this, I've come to realize that people on the left, when they were complaining about the end of democracy, it's getting distilled down now to an understanding that what they really meant was, oh, no, now democracy means democratic institutions, meaning these bloated bureaucratic institutions that were invented under a democratic system. Those are in jeopardy, which I say is a good thing. But democracy, the practice of democracy, is not in jeopardy, but maybe they didn't even mean that.
No, I mean, I think what it was is that democracy is important to get who they want in power, and then they can instill that through the institutions. And then once they're in power, democracy is actually a bad thing because it threatens their power struggle. It's pretty genius.
It's going at the institution that they put in place. Yeah, the other thing I want to ask you real quick, talking about de Tocqueville made me think about the French. Have you been keeping track of what's going on there?
I'm there. The Macron's government is sort of in collapse at the moment. Yeah,
it's not. Well, they can't get a prime minister in there. Even a guy like I forget the guy that just got the no confidence.
Yes, no faith, no confidence.
He was a very reasonable, very moderate guy, and he pushed through a budget that was a little bit status quo-y, and everyone went, "That's not. We wanted something different now."
But, you know,
do you have an opinion about that, Janine? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah.
We did an entire study on American exceptionalism, and I have a talk show about American exceptionalism at constitutionamerica.org. And one of the reasons we are exceptional is because of our Constitution. And you see all these other countries floundering and not succeeding, but we have a rule book. And the President Trump's, they all have to swear to protect this rule book, which is our Constitution. And that's the difference between us and countries like France.
I mean, totally agree with you. I agree, and this is their fifth republic. This is Cinquième République. De Gaulle put the Fifth Republic in.
I might also talk about the way that we have a Bill of Rights and things of that nature, that actually it was because of the anti-federalist and the federalists. We had John Jay, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton that wanted the Constitution, but we had the anti-federalists that came in and said, wait, we want a Bill of Rights. And that's a great example of dialogue, of listening to other sides, of compromise, of this kind of Hegel dialectic. That it's really great. Two sides can come together because it's the genius of the people, and we have different ideas, but can we find the middle and really come together? And I think that's what our Constitution has done so incredibly brilliantly. We would not have the Bill of Rights if we did not have the anti-federalists fighting against the United States Constitution and John Jay and Alexander Hamilton.
I think Elijah and I would both agree with you wholeheartedly, and the fact that the majority of those documents you're talking about were designed to protect us from the government, protect us from government excess, from the government, because the Founding Fathers had seen the insanity of what can happen.
Yeah, it's like when they say, what do you need an AR-15 for? People just have handguns.
Go ahead, Janine.
Yeah, that's why they believe in the states. They really want, and we have forgotten about that in our country.
Which is another genius. It's another genius. No, it's another part of the genius. It's why we have these. It's although, I'm stuck in one right now. California is such a disaster. How'd you get out of there, Janine? I guess you went back home to Texas. But California is catastrophic.
California when I was 23 and moved to New York City. Yeah.
Okay. God, it was terrible, California. Well, no, and New York is better. I'll tell you why. Because you actually do get something for your tax dollar. The government's still out of control and stuff, but you actually get something. California, you get literally nothing. Literally, except hassle, trouble.
I never liked California. I was really glad that Northern Exposure was filmed in Seattle, and we were sort of removed from all that. By the way,
it wasn't in Alaska.
No, it was in Seattle.
Damn, I thought for sure it was in. Are you too young for Northern Exposure?
Yeah, I am. I am a little too young for that.
Susan, we were big fans. Yes.
Hey, Elijah, you can watch it on Amazon now. Amazon.com. You can watch it.
I'll check it out, honestly.
It's a great show. You would love it.
Well, the shows made today aren't very good. I mean,
it's much better use of your time, trust me. But you were going to say something.
I was just going to say that, I think the system that's set up, people forget, they always ask, what do you need an AR-15 for? What do you need this for? And they go, who has an AR-15? And I go, the government does. And they go, so what do you want to have a nuclear, powered submarine? I go, if it was available, I would be fine with that. But at least an AR-15 is easily had. And I think people forget that the government is not your friend. And then what always happens is, I just want to point this out, they, while they're in power, these people, they go, you don't need a gun, you don't need this. Then Trump gets in and they go, only the police should have guns, only the government should have power. And then they tell you that Trump is worse than Hitler. And you go, so then why would you want them to have all the power,
Right. Why would you want him making decisions about abortion or about whether we have
You
guns?
need your rights, right? No matter who you are, left or right, you need your individual rights.
That's right. Janine?
But Dr. Drew, Alexis de Tocqueville talked about the administrative state, and we just had an essay on this at constitutionamerica.org, and it's out on the social media where I talk about it. He talked about the administrative state, which I don't believe in. I like elected officials making our decisions. But he did talk about the administrative state could give us some enlightened information. So once again, I think it's all about giving the power back to the genius of the people and to the people, the consent of the governed. But also, it's okay to listen to what experts have to say. So it's a fine line, right? It's just coming back to the middle, coming back to hearing both points of view, coming back to growing, listening, and reason, and hearing and combining these talents that we have in America, because we have so much talent in America.
I hear you saying the return of common sense, which is something I found myself saying like 3 or 4 years ago. I kept saying, "Well, I want to invent the common sense party," or what I called I said I wanted the pragmatism party, and I think common sense is returning. Don't you?
Yeah, I would say to that agreement, a lot of people think it's bad that the Republican Party is made up of a lot of ex-Democrats. But, it's the Republican Party is mostly made up of Republicans. But I think it's significant that it's made up of a lot of ex-Democrats because it's basically common sense individuals who want to come together and saying left or right, put aside. It's about doing what's good for us collectively.
Governing to govern
the people, right?
Basic function.
Trump said in his speech, his acceptance speech, the common core of common sense, and I think that's very, very valuable.
I agree. That's a very powerful statement. And you were talking about Doge, Janine, and I brought this up the other night. I was on the Gutfeld show, and I saw the Secretary of Education on Chelsea Handler's old talk show. If you remember, she had a talk show on Netflix for a few minutes. And she goes, I don't know anything about education, so I thought I'd bring in the Secretary of Education, and he could tell me what education's all about, because I know nothing. She goes, well, I want to tell you about education. You're the Secretary of Education. What do you do? And he goes, what do I do? She goes, yeah, what's your job? He goes, oh, my job? My job is to protect the civil liberties of every student in the country. And I thought, oh, shit, we are in trouble. This was Obama's Secretary of Education. And I thought, that's an entire department. We need education. We don't need civil liberties. That's yes, we need civil liberties, but my God, we have to have education. That department must go. It must go. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I think that eradicating a lot of these departments will do nothing but good.
Say that again,
Janine? We need to teach them about the United States Constitution, right? That's missing in our country. Let's talk about the Constitution. Let's talk about what it gives you. Let's talk about the rule book, the liberties that you have within the Constitution, and why our founders and whatnot, and all of our representatives and all of our presidents, they swear to protect the Constitution. There's not enough education about the Constitution.
I really do agree with you, and it sounds sort of trivial and trite to say that these days, but I think we this is the only country founded on a set of ideas. And if we don't, as a feature of our citizenship, come to an understanding of those ideas, how can we have a voting? I mean, that was the Founding Fathers' concern, that we could people be educated enough to really be responsible for their votes? And if we don't even understand what we are about, we're not around a common history, we're not around a common ethnicity, we have some common heritage, but not much. It's really unified around this idea codified in the Constitution that is what this country, this great experiment was. And how do we do it without people understanding what it is? You agree?
Yeah, I think ultimately speaking, the fact that most young people know how to twerk, but couldn't tell you two amendments in our rights there. I think we're in a very deeply sad position. And I'll just say this, I think our founding fathers, we need to really go back and look at what they were saying, because I don't even think they were for public education in general. They were for self-education, self-governance. And a lot of what we're doing now is depending on the state. And we should ask ourselves, if we are the state and it's a state by the people and of the people, then the people need to fix up and clean up.
I agree.
Well, Janine, I would disagree with that a bit.
Go ahead.
Because John Adams really John Adams, he was my favorite, really believed in in education. Maybe not public education, but knowledge is power. We must really educate our students. So I think it should be on a state level, quite frankly, but education is really important. And so both points of view, to be able to teach our kids to reason and to be civically minded about being a citizen in our country.
I agree. I think we'd all agree on that. And, I was educated in New England, and New England has a magnificent educational heritage, and John Adams was certainly a part of how that got established. It's a question of whether there should be a federal public, or how that should work. But it's a topic for another time. Janine, I got to kind of wrap up. Give us your final thoughts and your final pitch for Constituting America and your podcast and what they can find in the book. Tell us everything.
Oh, thank you. Well, my book is just about finding joy in despair, and it's a collaboration of poetry and prose and how to dig yourself out of despair. Constituting America is about finding civic reason. We have a speaking program. We have an academic study. We have about a talk show that I do on American exceptionalism. So it's all about loving America, understanding why America is great, and understanding how we need to teach our students. We offer those programs about why the Constitution actually really matters. It is the rule book.
And then the podcasts.
Oh, yeah, Constitutional Chats. We have a podcast every Tuesday, Constitutional Chats, where we bring in scholars from all over the country to talk about the United States Constitution. And we have a lot of youth that have won contests at Constituting America. So we have youth on our panel to actually ask these scholars questions. And that's every Tuesday at 2 Eastern. And the American Exceptional is available through Constituting America and all over all podcasts.
Janine, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Dr. Drew. And thank you, Elijah.
Thank you as well. It's wonderful listening to you.
Thanks, Janine.
Thank you.
All right. And it's you and I again. Kind of wrap this thing up. I want to see if Peter, I'm driving poor Caleb crazy by switching all these cameras. We are in Elijah's studio, and we are grateful for him turning this over to us today. I'm vamping here to give Caleb a couple seconds to turn on Peter's camera. But Peter, any you all right? Peter, any last minute thoughts from the Wellness Company, or what's upcoming, or where we should look for more?
Yeah, I mean,
we have something coming. You and I have something coming soon, right?
Oh, we
talk about that?
do. Yeah, we certainly do.
Want to talk about that?
Yeah, so drdrew.com is going to be offering its own line of telemedicine products, both Drew's favorites and some custom creations by Dr. Drew himself,
yes,
which I'm super excited to see released into this world. I think it's been long overdue.
When are we going to do that? When's that going to happen? We have any estimated?
I think
because I want to till the soil, because I think that's going to be a great thing for people.
Come January, I think we're going to have a beautiful website ready to go.
Great.
In the meantime, go to drdrew.com/TWC and get all the stuff you need for your family, your friends, the holiday gifts. Just like I said,
there you
great
go.
gift.
And Peter, follow you on Twitter. X, rather.
At Peter Gillooly.
Gillooly.
That was a stimulating conversation.
You liked it?
Yes. So did
producer liked it.
60,000 people on X.
That's Elijah. Wow. Elijah's following came in.
No, I think people came in. I was going to say on the side note, wrapping that up, two things. Number one, my family, I had multiple family members that are minors get denied health care here under Anthem Blue Cross for not being fully vaccinated, including with the COVID shot.
That's disgusting.
And we're not allowed to go into the practice. So, in terms of, I asked them what we would do in terms of if there was an emergency situation, and they said, go get vaccinated. And I said, why? I said, to protect us. So when you talk about having life-saving medication at hand, if there's an infection, make sure you have it on hand, because you never know.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that a medical establishment...
11. I called 11.
11
medical establishments here in South Florida.
They pediatric?
Yes, pediatric.
They believed that the child being vaccinated protected the staff.
Correct. Particularly, he said hepatitis B was one of the ones required. I said, I don't think a 6-week-old boy is involved in any sexual activity, but according to them, it was for their protection. Yeah, this is really a true thing.
So did they? If you were to parse out like certain vaccines, Like if you were to take measles, take mumps, take, I don't know, Haemophilus, take some other things, but not take hepatitis B, say, they would say that's enough. We can't have you in here because you're going to expose us to hepatitis B.
Yeah, it made my family member cry because
do you understand
yes.
hepatitis B is transmitted through blood? It's like HIV.
Yeah, well, yes, but I'm saying legitimately they said, and by the way they worded it, I looked it up, it's actually not even how they worded it. It's like the COVID thing where they would say COVID laws, but it was just like health recommendations. At least 3 of them told me that it was due to the vaccination laws, Florida vaccination laws. But it was
that makes more sense to me. I don't know if it's true or not.
But I looked up, it's not. It's just health recommendations.
Yeah.
But they try to sell it to if someone was, maybe less educated on the issue or a little more
me
ignorant on it. Yeah.
Because I'm going, it's state to state different too.
I'm new here too, so I looked it up and it's not a law, but they said it was a law. So I thought it was pretty remarkable. We did find one clinic and they said, I'm not going to say their name, they're like, just don't mention it anywhere that we're not requiring. So it's still under the table, and I thought that that's definitely something that the RFK Jr., if he's appointed, should definitely look into with what's going on with services here in Florida.
So in Florida, I can imagine it's worse in New York and California, Illinois. but so the issue is, I might be able to talk to him, and so the issue is that literally you are refused services if you're not vaccinated.
Correct. Okay. Even if you have insurance. We make the appointment, they ask for the insurance, and then they ask, is he fully vaccinated? I ask what the schedule is. They list off them. Some of them said COVID as well, which was kind of crazy because it's weeks old. Well, I mean, I was wondering if they were smoking something. And I asked them, I was like, you're really going to deny access, because I'm being very, very upfront, to a young baby who's having an unrelated spinal condition because of them not being vaccinated against a sexually transmitted disease. And I got an honest yes from 2 of them. Like 2 clinics, like, yes. Wow. And I was like, that's absurd. So much to the point that I am concerned because I didn't know it was that bad. And I actually thought it would be more free here. This
is Florida, yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
We got to sort of investigate that a little further.
I think we should.
Because whoever the medical actual trained physician staff has to check their policies because they're the responsible party. I can understand if a clerk at the front desk doesn't know any better and is scared and just following what they think is the policy. But if the medical staff stands
How is Dr. Joseph Ladapo allowing that to happen? Isn't he in charge in that state over a lot of stuff? That's who you should talk to.
Are you hearing that?
Stand for any of that.
He's asking how Ladapo, I don't think he would stand for that if he knew about it.
Listen, I looked, and it is the recommendation, particularly.
I'm all for recommendations, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
That's different than can you get care?
Correct. And I asked multiple times, and they said we could not bring a child in there without following the full vaccination schedule.
I think you would agree with me also that a facility is at their liberty to say we don't want to deal with those patients, right? They're at their liberty, but they better have good reason for it.
Well, yes, I was gonna say, listen, I think there's a fine line there where I think that they are at liberty, specifically with healthcare, if it does follow direct guidelines. Like if there's evidence that a baby not being vaccinated for hepatitis B puts their staff at risk.
Right.
But if there's not that evidence and it's just a guideline,
guess what? There isn't. So they're going to have to back away from some of that stuff. But if they want to say we don't want measles in our facility, it's like, all right. You know what I mean? They don't want the.
They're still doing. Listen, they're still doing this because my wife, when we were coming back here from Australia, she was 7 months pregnant, and the United States government didn't want to renew her visa or like give her a renewal unless she had 2 doses given now of the COVID vaccine. Oh. And when we showed them the medical work, we worked actually with doctors from the wellness company to create an entire resume explaining from highly credentialed, highly published doctors about the threat of that. They said, well, it's the current recommendation from the United States government to this.
People have been hiding behind the recommendations, but CDC has been saying, we just make recommendations. And then the people that are following the recommendations follow it as though it's thus saith the Lord. And they're like a law. It's ridiculous. Wow. Okay, this is a bigger topic. We're out of time.
We're over time. Sorry about that.
Do you have a show coming up tonight?
Yeah, I actually got a show at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It is on Rumble at Slightly Offensive. And I also have a show tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. It's on Vigilant News Network on Rumble as well. It's a news show 5 days a week. You got to check it out. It's amazing. So,
what's it called?
It's called The Daily Dose, and it's the stories you might have missed. Work actually with Vigilant Fox on X. He curates the stories, and we cover the news. So he's been really, really cool providing us with topics.
And I was telling Elijah
cool.
that
I need one of those.
Scott
Yeah.
Scott Adams has been referring to the Vigilant Fox almost every day because way he
He's so
collates
bright.
news and presents is very, very important.
He's a
I would
fox.
say.
He's cunning and he's swift.
Cunning and swift and cunning. I would say that covers it. Cunning pretty much covers
Incredible.
it. Okay, Peter, thank you for being here. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for all you've done for wellness and for all the people that are benefited from the Wellness Company. We appreciate you all being here as well. We've been watching you. Susan, anything on the Restream or the Rumble Rants?
I just want to shout out to 70,000 people on X. Thanks for listening. And also that there's something wrong with the chat.
Which
I'm
chat?
like, are there
The
Chinese bots over there
the X chat?
checking our? Well, I'll post something and it won't go through, and then it takes a couple
This is
minutes.
on X, huh?
Yeah, but maybe it's just there's so many people over there, it's just not working right. I
We've
don't know.
always had weird. Well, I see it's showing up on the Restream.
Yeah,
X's.
yeah.
And I say Sean Smith. I see Vegan Za. I see from X. I see.
Okay, Hobo Kelly. You guys are too young for Hobo Kelly, right?
Indeed,
Okay.
all of them.
Look it
Okay,
up.
and then Elijah, appreciate you being here very much. Thank you so much, and for letting us use the studio. In
Anytime,
spite of the
Doctor.
fact that I'll talk about upcoming guests in just a second, but in spite of the fact last time I was in here, I ruined your sound equipment. It's just
You
ridiculous.
dropped a Diet Coke into the Roadcaster.
A memory made, but you know what I feel like is that because this is obviously we just set this up, moved from another country. I feel like we'll get it down more and more and more, and eventually maybe we'll have 5 backup roadcasters.
Is this the one I sent you, the brand new one?
Yes, that's the brand new one.
Yeah,
so you
I
guys
sent
did,
you.
and that wasn't even necessary. But
it
was a very,
I
But
feel
you
very
had a
warm gift.
backup, fortunately, here.
we
And then
felt
I said, I'm
terrible about
replacing
that.
it. So you
I know,
got-
but we don't have the sound right. I felt so bad, and I was like, I don't know what to do because it was like peaking or something. but now it's fixed and it's great, And I just want to remind people, you don't need a podcast studio. I always say this: you just need a voice, and you have a phone, and you can get your voice out there. Never stop speaking the truth.
Oh, that's sweet.
It's a great words to
That's
live
how
by.
we started.
It's true. She just said, you got ideas about this COVID thing. You should share it with people. Talk about it. And Caleb said, streaming is the thing. So there we are. But let's see the upcoming guest, Justine Bateman. Have you seen Justine on X lately? She is on fire.
I'll follow her.
She's on fire. She's so funny. That's on the 10th, which I guess is Tuesday. Anybody tell me that?
Tuesday.
Thank you. And then Susan has a show on the 11th at noon. Do you know anything about that yet?
Calling Out with Susan Pinsky. We're going to have Emily Hagen and Drea's coming back. We're going to talk about
Drea Di Matteo.
Laurel Canyon mysteries and histories.
Drea is a great guest. It's always great to see her.
Yeah, we want to talk about dead people from Laurel
Robert
Canyon.
Barnes from Viva and Barnes coming in on the 11th with Aaron Day. Very special show on the 12th is a noon show because Matthias Desmond is in Belgium. So we are going to do that at noon on December 12th with Aaron Cariotti. The two together are just sensational. And then Justin Hart on the 17th with Toby Rogers. Seth Dillon on the 18th with Gad Sad. Talk about the parasitic mind, I tell you. That his stuff, what did he say the other day that I just caught my attention? Oh, we're going to talk with Gad Sad about sneaky fuckers. Do you know what sneaky fuckers are?
That's like my son. He's a year and a half.
Sneaky fuckers are, it's a zoological frame. It's a obviously sort of a tongue-in-cheek term for zoological behavior, particularly observed in primates, where sneaky fuckers get around the alpha male by pretending to be more like the females to get access to the females, and then they're sneaky fuckers and get at the females that way.
I like it. I mean, I do like giving the animals some funny names like that.
But doesn't it sound familiar for the present moment? There's been a lot of sneaky fuckers.
It's called Hunter Biden,
No, he was not. He was a
Sneaky fucker with a crack pipe is what we call that.
was a little different than
I have
sneaky
a theory
fucker.
that he's going to get arrested and thrown in jail after this is over. He's going to go out and because that's what criminals usually do.
That's what addicts do. But there's one more thing, is that since he can't incriminate himself on any of these things he has done,
But
there's no more incrimination.
does that also
There's no
count
more
for
Fifth
future?
Amendment.
Yeah,
he can
he-
be questioned,
yeah.
and he has to, or he's going to be in contempt.
Yeah, and addicts are typically honest, so that's that's honest. Just saying. Yeah, so we'll leave that. Leave it there.
Oh, my
It's part of the
goodness.
12-step program.
Yeah.
So, but if he does another crime, he's not clear of that.
He is not, though who knows
He's
the way
going
this
to be.
is going.
He's going to get arrested for a DUI, or he's going to he's going to do something.
I've actually been worried about his survival because I saw that attorney sort of supporting some crazy behaviors. I see this supporting bad behaviors. You give addicts a rope and they will hurt themselves with it. And
he has to be thinking he's invincible right now.
It's why we tell family members, let them get arrested.
It's like
you got to
the
let it happen.
spoiled brat gets let off, and then they go out and do it.
You know what? I am worried because I obviously not glorifying addiction or anything, but there's always some funny memes that are, like showing him literally driving a Porsche about 130 miles per hour with a crack pipe. And some people see this as toxic. I see this as legendary. And it's sort of like this joke because he's it's sort of like a movie, right? It's not legendary in the real world, but it's like that character who's crazy, but it all turns out happy in the end.
No.
I think he thinks he's in a movie where it's he doesn't realize, and I don't think it's that. I think he might die.
That's what I'm telling you.
No,
I think he'll have a heart attack or he'll OD because
his life is in serious danger.
Yeah.
I don't see a spirited program of recovery being represented. I don't hear recovery language. I don't see recovery behavior. And so when somebody with that history is not manifesting something that he might be in some intensive, cognitive behavioral therapy or something that could be helping him. But boy, it's still, look at this picture. Oh my God. I feel that somebody
see, that's the joke. It's but in the end, it's not a movie. And I think that's where a lot of people today, and I myself included, I grew up in LA, and one thing I noticed moving out of LA is people in the rest of the country don't think that they're the main character in a movie. Right. So in LA, everybody, maybe in New York too, but everyone thought they're in a movie, and you're like, hey, you're not in a movie. And I realize that's people who moved there, right? They moved there, they all think there's something special. But I think with this kind of attitude, I got to thank God. I mean this genuinely. Some of the areas that I've screwed up in my life, some of the consequences I faced, some of them public, whatever. Some of them were based on bullshit in my life. Of course, it's never my fault. But what I mean is I look through the last 30 years of my life, and I'm grateful that there are consequences in place for actions, because I know it sounds milquetoast, but I would be dead if I didn't get a hold of the partying, didn't get a hold of the drug use in college and things like that. And I think that kind of stuff, the fact that your body starts to hurt, or you get a friend call you saying my liver's hurting, you're going, that's there because as I would say, God has designed your body to protect you, to warn you. And so I've seen a lot of friends die, a lot of friends have problems, and a lot of friends who even get divorced because no one's willing to tell them, hey, there's some toxic issues going on in your life. So unfortunately, with all addicts, you give them too much freedom and you give them no consequence, and usually you end up at their funeral within 2 years.
And there's sort of a crazy thing happening right now where sort of reality is coming back. Reality is re-emerging. And with that, sort of a practical, kind of pragmatic approach to it, because that reality eventually asserts itself. And in addiction, when it does so, the outcomes are often not great. Well, listen, my friend, good to see you again. I thought we were going to go over your history, which we had too much else to talk about. We'll one day do that.
We'll have some fun one time.
I think we'll be spending some more time in Florida soon.
Yeah,
so we'll be around here more.
Yeah, when I have a better, I was actually originally was me tomorrow, so I had blocked it out, but unfortunately on Tuesdays, Thursdays, I have my stuff. But I was going to say, a phrase I heard recently was a conserva conscience is coming in, not conservatism, not political, but a conserva conscience of people sort of realizing that even if I want to be liberal and progressive in my mind, it's actually, suicidal empathy. And so I have to make decisions to stop myself because the world's going to kill me if I don't get control of my own life.
Also, this is misplaced. This is sympathy in the place of empathy, and sympathy can be toxic just like anything else. So another topic, different day. We'll see you there. It is Justine Bateman, next guest. She has been on fire lately. Follow her on X. You'll see what I'm talking about. We appreciate our guests. We appreciate you, and we will see you on Tuesday at 3:00.
Ta-ta.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.